Did you hit record? I don't
did.
have confirmation.
I hit record.
Okay, because, we have a history.
No, you have a history.
No, you know what? You have a history.
No, not once have I had a history.
There's a lot of history packed into that 24 tech brain situation you got going on over there.
No, there is a big button on your camera that says record. And you did not hit it. That happened.
I like big buttons. I cannot lie. I like to hit them.
And yet, you didn't hit it. You hit it today, right?
Yes. Welcome back to Talking Story. Hey, my name is John Minton. That right there is my literary wingman, the best producer on BookTube, the heir apparent to the BookTube throne.
Heir apparent? Wow. My name's Jakob. I don't know if I am worthy of all this, but...
Oh, sure. Why not? You go ahead and take it.
Okay.
Take gifts gracefully. Don't turn down,
That's not a good look if you just accept it blindly.
People will think you were raised by wolves or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's not good. But thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
But I tell you, it's bathroom walls everywhere have proclaimed best producer on BookTube.
No, I really hope not. Heir apparent is especially too far.
You want that on bathroom walls instead? Because that could be taken the wrong way. Jakob, heir apparent, like that. That on bathroom walls might, that could be a problem.
Yeah, that doesn't look good either. None of it looks good. Don't do any of that.
All right, man. Look, enough of this chin wagging. We've got everything we read in the month of February. It's a short month. Somehow, even with a short month, I've got some kind of bizarre mashup of books that are going to have to battle it out for best read of the month.
I cannot wait to see you lose your mind.
Look, it's not going to be easy because I'm going to say, I think there might be 3 or 4 that are in contention.
Oh, I know there's 3. I don't know what the 4th one is.
I think there might be a 4th.
Wow.
I think there might be a 4th. Yeah. When I start lining them up here like little book soldiers and go over.
Wow, 4 is a lot, man. Usually you read like 7 books in a month. 4 is...
There's too many. Let's start with your massive stack. Let's go over your massive stack because
it's not massive.
That should take a good half a second.
Well, I had a goal that at the end of February I was going to come in here and be done with Curse of the Mistwraith and read some
wait a minute
books as well. Oh,
drum roll.
I didn't finish it.
You know what? You still read quite a bit.
I still read quite a bit. I've got about a chapter and a half left of Curse of the Mistwraith. It'll be done very quickly. I'm still on track for my other goal to have this done, Heart of Darkness, into the Wood at Midwinter, and start Howling Dark by next Sunday. I'm still on track for that.
I think you're going to hit that. And look, we were together most of the day today. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts, happening that we're trying to get across the finish line. And life is going to life, man. Life is going to come up and tap you on the shoulder sometimes and go, today's not your day to read. That just is going to happen.
It happens. Anytime that I'm around you for all the day, reading's not getting done. I don't know how you got reading done. Did you get reading done today?
I did.
Okay. Well, then my argument goes away.
Yeah. Well, look, hit us up a little bit with what you're thinking for the month. How's you're a chapter and a half away from wrapping up book 1 of the Wars of Light and Shadow, Curse of the Mistwraith by the amazing Janny Wirth. How's it hitting you? What are you thinking?
Like you said, we were with each other a lot of today, and we'd actually talked about this a little bit today. This is just, I mean, please give it the time of day. Give it a try, because if it finds the audience that it really deserves, and it deserves a huge audience, this should be talked about as some of the greatest fantasy of all time. Like this is the intricacies involved in building a plot like this and not compromising really intense character journeys and emotions and motivations that change and evolve, and just the world building as well that is
the lore, right?
A tier above. I mean, it is not your Sanderson type magic system where everything is clearly defined. It is strictly undefined so that there can remain mystery and surprises
and
around every corner.
There's beauty in the mystery,
there really
right?
is beauty in the mystery. And there's beauty in the world because you don't know so much about it. And following these characters' journey in a world like that is, this series, one book in, has already become comfort food in me, or for me. Arathon Safalin is already maybe my favorite fantasy character of all time. I really love his direction, his motivations.
Here's why I knew you were going to love this, because this is one of those books, and you say it finds the audience you got to find. This is one of those books where, and sometimes in today's pace, it's difficult. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
You've got to sit down and open yourself up and focus a little bit, and you hit this meditative state that transports you from where you are into story, that can help you understand not only that story but parts of yourself, right? And I knew you were going to dig that. I knew the way you love to craft words and meticulously build something. I knew this was going to speak to you in that way, and it's just special. It's special for that audience, no doubt.
It really is. And there's another way that it's, I should say, speaks to me, not spoke to me, because I'm not finished with it quite yet, but that I wasn't quite expecting. And this isn't a spoiler or anything, so nobody freak out, but there are, typically in fantasy, you have like the Gandalf character that knows everything, right? Or at least knows nearly everything. But in this world, there are plenty of wizards and enchantresses and that put on the face that they know everything.
I mean, sure.
But true to form to all the other adults in the real world that we live in, no one knows everything. They're just doing their best. They're doing
their best. They got plans.
They got plans.
They got plans.
Always work.
They don't
do
always
have
work.
plans, and I really love that.
I just got to tell you, this is so special for me because, like you said earlier, we were hanging out today getting some things done, and we talked about this. Forget the cameras and the mics and everything else, to hang out and talk about a series with my son and how it's hitting him and having that connection. Oh my gosh, it was just so special. Like it was just everything to me. So you know what? You didn't catch every book, but you're still able to have that time with me. And at the end of the day, like that's all that matters. Like you find some time to take in story. I never set goals on Goodreads or anywhere else. It's like story's a part of my life. I don't have to make a high watermark that I have to hit. It's just a part of my life, right?
Yeah.
And that time today, it was just absolutely amazing. I'm so excited for your journey, man. I am so excited for your journey.
I mean, in that personal aspect, like I think this is the first time that I've really been involved with a book in a way where I can like talk to other people in the community about a about
right.
Let alone
and
you
we got the
be able to visit you.
We got the big read along on Discord.
Yeah,
you could talk to everyone on Discord and hit us up on Discord. I mean, oh my gosh, we got read alongs.
We got read alongs.
We have so much going on. There's an entire March of Darkness with so many things planned coming up. If you haven't checked out our Discord, do that. It's right down there. And we're all over the place. Where else are we?
We are also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Ooh, I feel like I missed one. Blue Sky. That's it. And Patreon, if you want to count that one. We're there.
Yeah. All information all down there for you should check it out and see.
So that is what I read this month. But what all did you read this month? Let's start seeing the paint on your face where you try and pick the best.
Let's start seeing the paint because it was for a short month, this was a great month. I mean, just like all the months are here on BookTube, because all of you are giving me the best things to go on adventures and check out and look at. Number one, we started with book 2 of Richard Swann's Empire of the Wolf, Tyranny of Faith. I had not long ago made my favorite trilogy list, I had to kind of have this as an honorable mention because I'd only read one book, but I could already tell, oh my gosh, this is gonna get up there in that list. So I was excited to get to book 2, and it did not let me down. Let me tell you, in book 1, this character of Conrad von Volt that is a traveling jurister, a traveling judge, and he lives with the core of his being that this empire, as it sprawls out further, the core of it, the reason that we can all, after these conquests, come together and be a civilized community is because we are all the same under the letter of the law. And he has these magical powers that allow him to enforce the law out there in the hinterlands on the edge of this sprawling empire. And book 1 explores the spiral of his character when all that starts to get stripped away from him. In book 2, we get to pick up as he's being called back from the hinterlands into the very Washington, D.C. aspect of like the very heart of the empire he's called back to. So he's called back and he's actually put in charge of the entire the entire jurist system, the entire court system. He sits at the top of it now that he can maybe start to address and unwind this unrest, this strife that's happening between this magic being pulled, wanting to go back to the religious leaders that used to have it, and now the jurists that have it, and what's best for society. Everybody is wanting to do the best. And through the middle of this, some of this magic has been locked away for good reason. There's always a cost to magic. And this comes from a place that is outra and other and outside of our realm of experience. What is behind that curtain? What happens to our energy and our soul and our beings after we pass? Where do we go? What type of undiscovered country do we tread? All those kind of things can be untapped with some of this magic that has been locked away in the libraries of this court system that he now is starting to realize in this new mystery he's untapping. There's some things going on with you religious leaders trying to strip this away, and he feels like he can maybe save the empire. He's now at the very center of everything, at the very top of the chain, and he can use all his influence. I think we all know it's going to end in tears, and it absolutely did. And it has just the amazing voice of his person, that his assistant barrister that's becoming a barrister, Helena Sedinka, that's traveling with him. He's got a couple bodyguards with him that are definitely the worse for wear after what they've been through in book 1 and are going through in book 2 here. But you're able to hear that voice of Helena as she's describing what he's going through and what's happening. And you really get the understanding of not only the interior monologue of the fall of what was considered truly a great man, but how that affects his people around him, how that affects the people he depends on, how they start to see him, how it changes a little bit, how they define him. And in that definition from outside in, how that changes the way he looks at himself. And as I kind of hinted at, there's an absolute lovely just thread of cosmic horror that goes through this, and it just gets ratcheted up a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further until by the end, the stakes are as high as they can possibly be. And I promise it is not going to be long at all before book 3 is in my hands on a TBR stack, because this did not disappoint. If anything, this just made me hungry to finish up this trilogy and see where it's going to crash my favorite trilogy list, because this was just everything I was hoping for and more. It was so much fun. Absolutely. Did not suffer at all from the sophomore effort from Mr. Richard Swan. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be lined up here at the end for Book of the Month.
So that is one of your 4.
That's got to be one of them.
Starting off strong.
It's got to be one of them, because, look, you start a trilogy, you think, oh, man, I'm digging this. This is going to be great, right? And then this great man's venture to the Capitol and the unwinding and everything that happens, and his entourage looking around him, and everything I wanted was here. So it's like it's just a complete wealth of all of my expectations being answered. So once you go in with high expectations and all those bells are rung and they're answered, like how does that not make the list?
Is it one of those like Alien to Aliens kind of things, where maybe it's an unpopular opinion, where the sequel is arguably better?
I'm not going to say
first?
it's better. I'm not going to say it better. It just does such a perfect job on building everything, all of that lovely, amazing foundation that they put down in the first. This just builds on it more and more and more. I tell you, it was everything I was hoping for it to be.
So
I really enjoyed it. Yeah. And then after that, hey, one thing we do here every month is book club with the missus.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where my lovely missus will pick a read for us every month. And it's a little bit off the beaten path for me, a little bit outside. Maybe it's an author I haven't heard of. Maybe it's a genre I'm not familiar with or don't delve into all that often. But this month, she came across with Woodworm by Layla Martinez. And look at this little slice of a angry book. This was astounding. I had such a great time with this. We followed along, all the group followed along on Discord as we read this, and then we had our big book club with the missus gathering here on the channel, and we talked about everything, and she brought in so much interesting backstory about this author and the time and the place that she was creating it and that it's representing. She's just, I just love book club with them. It's always so much fun. Jump in and join us so you can do that. But this is kind of like a two-pronged attack on a story. It's two POVs, a grandmother and the granddaughter. And the granddaughter is just returning from quite the long journey. Where has she been? What's going on? Many, many mysteries here at the beginning of this. She's returning to the house her grandmother lives in. And you quite soon find that this house... I would say it's a classic haunted house story, but there's nothing classic about this. It expands on every idea you would have about a haunted house story, twists it, bends it, morphs it, pulls it outside of expectations and into a very uncomfortable place that not only comments on the genre itself of a haunted house story, but comments on society itself and classism and different things that have gone into this area, into this house so much where this house itself is just living and breathing and filled with enmity towards some of these people and the classism and the racism and everything that's been going on in this region. And now it's just exploding with this type of hate. And who is caught in the middle of it in this mystery of the past? What happened? This generational trauma that layer upon layer upon layer is being pulled apart and exposed for us, for our entertainment. There's two unreliable narrators in combat here with the grandmother and the granddaughter as they look back in this generational traumatic story, and we start to try to get the pieces from both of them to build in our heads this puzzle of what really happened and what is the truth and what does it all mean. And somehow it all fits together. It's like that last puzzle piece where you get that thrill and you hear that sound when it goes right into place so perfectly, and it all happens by the end. And it was just an amazing achievement by not only Layla Martinez, but by the translators who did such an amazing job. Sophie Hughes and Annie McDermott did such an amazing job because one of the enormous strengths of this is the author's voice. Oh, the character voices are distinct and raw and sarcastic and at times raunchy and will make you laugh at some of the darkest moments that you're not comfortable laughing about, but you just can't help yourself. So you have that dichotomy of expression as you're reading the book, and it's all because of what the author is able to do in the utilization of voice for these characters. And that is not lost at all in the translation. And that's why I wanted to point out those two translators, because they did an amazing job. So just from left field, again, a book I would never have picked up, but for the missus I did. And it's like, just wow. It's got to be up for book of the month.
I think whatever book that the missus gives you every month consistently is up for book of the month. It doesn't always win, but yeah, it's consistently up there on the list.
What are you going to say? She's brilliant. Your mother's brilliant. A genius.
Yeah. She can find them, man. She can find brilliance. It's in her as well.
Yeah. So what came up after that? After that was our Patreon read, where once a month we take a vote in one way or another. Kind of we change it up sometimes from here to there, kind of shake things up a little bit, but we always allow our patrons to pick something. If you're interested in that at all, hey, let's drop something real quick and just kind of thank some people that keep the lights on here and make everything possible. And let's face it, protect us from making huge mistakes daily.
It would happen without them every time.
Oh, let me tell you, we just do nothing but bump into the furniture around here without them, without their guidance. So let's take just a quick minute and drop a quick thank you. Just a quick break in the action to thank all of our correspondents, directors, and producers on Patreon. These people keep the lights on. They make decisions for us because we don't know what we're doing. We're not great at making the decisions around here. The decisions all the way from what I'm going to read next, what the book club of the month Patreon pick is going to be, but all the way up to video ideas and what we're going to do here on the channel coming up for you. If you're interested or you want to find out how you can be a part of this, right down there in the description box, click the Patreon link. It's got all the answers for you. And once again, thank you to all of these fine people that are helping us build the channel, our correspondents, directors, and producers. All right, so if you have an interest, again, all right down there, check it out. So what won this month of February for the Patreon read? It was The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. And I know this is a pen name. It's not the author's actual name. But I was excited to get to this. I believe this was Petrick's debut of the year last year. We had some patrons that had already read it that were very excited that this won. So excited for us to get into it. And I gotta tell you, usually the Patreon pick is all ball. You catch all ball and way out of the park. This one was a mixed bag for me.
That's rare, man.
It really is. And let me tell you, I respect it because Benjamin Lyer was swinging so hard. He was making some really, really bold choices here, really swinging for the fences. And some of it worked and some of it didn't. This is such a different type of fantasy world that he is building. And I think he really relies on his strengths of video game design and video story, so much so that I saw quite a bit of gamification of the narrative. Some of it worked for me, some of it did not for me. And some of what I had a problem with was the characters. This is one of those multi-POV fantasies. It kind of has that Cast of Thousands feel. And in that, as opposed to the author's voice in something like Woodworm, where each character is so distinctive, and I know exactly who's walking on the stage, this one, I didn't really necessarily get that much of a difference in character voice from character to character. Sometimes there was a kind of a sameness in the dialogue, which I did not think did him any favors because the world building here was so different than what we have come to expect in fantasy. You're wanting to grasp onto something because we're in the unusual, we're in the uncomfortable, we're in the difference, and maybe characters is what I'll grab onto, a character journey. And the POV shifts so quickly and so fast from one to the other, one headspace to the other, and the headspaces are not all that different. And at times, the motivation behind their decisions as a character and their agency of what they're trying to do is not really understandable. And he holds those cards as an author a little bit close to his chest at sometimes. He doesn't want to drop that card or drop that shoe and let you know what's really happening in the plot until he thinks it will be the most effective for him. And what that does sometimes is it can cause a character motivation to feel unrealistic. Oftentimes we'll be in the heat of a great dramatic moment, and you'll have a character say to another character, well, I have really something to tell you, but I just can't tell you right now. And in the real world, we don't let that slide. If someone has something to tell us and we're in a heated moment, we're going to, okay, I'm all in now. I'm going to push as hard as I can to get you to tell me that. And the author and these characters were just accepting of it so we could move on and he could drop that plot device when he wanted to for his highest effect, he thought. And sometimes that would get under my skin a little bit. So I was struggling. I was having a hard time with all these kind of things as I moved through the book. And then I got to the end of this book. This is one of those, as I said, uncomfortable puzzle book that you're piecing together It's non-linear. It's not moving in a straight line through time, and you're piecing all these things together from past to present, multi-POVs, very different world. And as you're piecing this together, and you get to, like, I would say the last 75 to 100 pages, and he does finally lay those cards out and drop those shoes, then it's like, oh, well, now the character's just expanded because he finally pulled back the curtain and showed me enough of the show to make me want to be in the chair in the audience. Not only that, I want to be in the chair for book 2 because I think there's a moment in time here. As I said, it's nonlinear. There's a moment in time here that is the crux of everything. This confrontation that's called the Hot Halls War. And I think what we're going to get is we're going to be able to go back and see everything that happens in that moment in time in book 2, and we'll get even more answers. So a little bit of setting all the pretty stage, setting all the furniture and all the backdrops and all the pretty props and everything took a long time. But once you finally see the 3 dimensions of these characters as the actors come out and you find out who people are and why they're there and everything like that, when the final puzzle pieces fall together, then it absolutely did start to work for me at the end as the things fell together. Now, that could be what the author wanted all along. So I was on the exact journey he wanted me to be on, even though it was uncomfortable. Or she, I don't know, again, it's a pen name, so who knows. But so maybe he had me or she had me or they had me exactly where they wanted me, right? But it was a mixed bag for me until the end. And then I'm definitely going to be there for book 2 to see where it goes. Because I do want to know what the Hot Halls War happened. But
I assume not up for book of the month, that one.
Not up for book of the month. Because, again, I had these problems with it. It wasn't one of those that just clicked with me and got under my skin in that way.
Right. That's okay. That happens. Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, that absolutely happens. Book of the month is like, book of the month is way up there. Case in point, this next book I really enjoyed, but it's not going to stand up with some of these books of the month.
Right.
And once a month here, we try and we do at least one indie published book. This month was Small Town Problems by friend of the channel, Chris Ritchie. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I was surprised by this book. I can't wait for book 2 of this. The characters were just, I loved everything about them. This was, where to start? This was so surprising to me. Judging a book by its cover, I'm going to start there because I looked at the typeset here and I looked at the art and I thought, oh, doesn't this look like a little bit of a fun, goofy romp, first contact story, breath of fresh air, maybe to break up some heavier things that I'm reading. Really looking forward to it. And what I got was, sure, there is some levity here and there's some fun here, but there's also a real beating heart at the core of this book. Not only an exercise and an examination of grief and loss and what that does to us and how we carry on with that and how our collective community around us impacts that and can save us. What happens to that community when someone new shows up and someone new, very new, not even from, again, it's a first contact story, so I'm not blowing anything, but someone not even from this neck of the woods at all. We're talking about the stars. So it was so lovely to see Chris Ritchie not only give me that breath of fresh air and that levity and those lighter moments, because Harladay was just such a lovely character that you do laugh out loud at his fish out of water moments in this small town. But as he niches himself in and understands what the love and community is growing here that he's now become a part of, and how all those around him are going to be changed by the introduction of his character, and how they're going to be changed from him coming in as well. And then this very interesting examination of history and past and grief and decisions we've made and possibly some guilt we carry and how we overcome that and how we move forward in the future and what that does to us as far as accepting new people and possibilities of loyalty, camaraderie, friendship, and love in the present when we have that type of past. There was just so many layered themes and amazing things going on in in the beating heart of this core of this book. On top of what the cover would make you think it is. And the compression is so impressive because this is not a huge tome. Chris Ritchie pulled this off. Brevity is the soul of wit, and he absolutely pulled it off in grand fashion and in a compressed fashion. He didn't overstay his welcome on the stage with these characters at all, because I cannot wait to see what happens with them next. If the next book was out, I would pick it up right away.
So a couple things then. Well, one, usually for indie books, we put a link in the description. So I assume this book by Chris Ritchie
absolutely recommend it. I would absolutely recommend it and put a link down there. If this sounds like something you would like to try out, I would love to hear what you think about it. And I would wholeheartedly recommend it. Yes, absolutely.
Second thing, always awesome to see an indie pub viewer send you a book and it's actually awesome.
Well, and it happens so often.
Yeah.
It happens so often. This one is, Chris is just, he's like, Chris has become a friend.
Yeah.
Like it goes above and beyond just an indie author at this point. I would consider Chris a friend, and to see that friend working and trying to create and trying to share a little bit of himself and I'm sure a little bit of his past and his journey and his wisdom that he's picked up, and to put that into these words and these pages and cast this out into the broader world to try and share not only his story, but a little bit of himself as well. And it come across to my desk and hit me in the ways that it hit me. Absolutely just special. It just rings through my soul of everything that story can do and tell. And it's just so over the top wonderful that it's a friend that delivered it to us, right?
And well done, Chris. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Well done, Chris.
Does that count as a novella? In which case it would be disqualified from Book of the Month. It is very short.
This is a very small, it's 150 pages or so. So I would call it a small novel or a novella.
Okay.
And usually we don't put those up for Book of the Month. And I'm not saying this wouldn't be considered. There are some months, absolutely, I would consider this as Book of the Month. But it just so happens there's some real heavy hitters. And I'm sure Chris would be the first one to say, with the next one I'm going to pull out.
I'm sure.
I totally get it.
Regardless, well done, Chris.
Well done, Chris. Hit that link if it sounds interesting to you at all. I think you will find there is some magic out there in Indie Pub. Absolutely try it out. So what came up next?
Is that a rhetorical question, or did you want me to answer that?
I was going to see if you knew.
Oh, it's Gardens of the Moon. It's MALAZAN.
It's Gardens of the Moon. It was time to start the mission into MALAZAN. And oh my gosh, look. It's interesting to me because when I did Curse of the Mistwraith, I could tell right away. We were talking a little bit about it earlier, right? I could tell right away. It's like, I can tell by the architecture and the start and the beginning, the first steps of this journey, that it's going to be a favorite. It's going to be one of those that resonates with me. And I think back on over the years from time to time to time, and especially as I go forward. But this first book for me, wow, I've never seen a fantasy book work quite this way. And that is, how to put this? His Steven Erikson's, I might not have said, this is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. Steven Erikson is one of those people that I think just hit the ground running. He didn't have to, as an author, pull himself up on a coffee table and take a couple of slow steps without without letting go of the furniture, and then he takes a couple steps over this way, and then the next thing you know, he's off and running. No, this guy as a writer just like came out with frickin' track shoes on. Like just was fully formed with Nikes on his feet and ready to like take off. The world building on this is not only expansive and grand and sweeping, it is peopled in a way that not only do you get every place you go to has a story that's happening right there with these people, and a history to that place that's impacting these people and what's happening now, and themes interwoven into it as we open up on this huge battle of a capital falling and an emperor being deposed, and battles in the street, and the poorest section in town, of course, is getting hit the worst. And you have a small boy on the ramparts there with his merchant father overlooking all this happening. And you have some soldiers down on the ground looking up at the ramparts, and the young boy saying, "Oh, I want to be a soldier someday." And they're telling him, "You know what? Aim for a quiet life, kid. Maybe the guards won't notice you. This is nothing for nobody that you'd want." You start with that, and from there you go forward, and these themes never let go. The place never lets go. The characters never let go, and they all interweave in such a way that magic happens. Is it complex? Absolutely. For a completely different reason than, say, Wars of Light and Shadow is, but there is complexity. It is layered. It does take attention. But look, when I started this, I had been forewarned, and I had my notebook, and I had my list of reference material that I might have to, research material that I might have to turn to if a chapter didn't hit me quite right or I didn't understand. I had my slide rule, and I had my Excel sheet, and I had everything laid out to chart this world and these characters, because I was told I might have to really focus and do a little extra attention, and none of that was necessary. Absolutely none of that was necessary. Very quickly after chapter 1, 2, or 3, I was like, you know what? Clear the decks of all this stuff. This is just a grand storyteller, and I'm going to give him my absolute trust, and I am just going to follow him, and I'm going to see what he makes me feel. I'm going to see what he makes me think. I'm going to see how he makes me react, and I'm going to see where he goes, because he goes to some bonkers places. This world building in a fantasy world is filled with nightmare fuel and stretches of the imagination that we just don't normally see in a fantasy world. It is off the chart with huge set piece moments. And I understand that this was originally written as a screenplay. So these huge set piece moments make perfect sense when you start to think about that. The ending that I did have a little bit of a problem with, because there's so many multiple POVs, and as we're building up to the crescendo of this ending, and we're jumping from POV to POV, and it's very, very quick, I think it would play out dynamite on the screen if you had quick cuts from action scene to action scene to action scene, and it starts to build up to this crescendo at the end. In prose, it didn't quite work that way. I found it a little bit fractured, and it made the action a little bit stuttery for me as it played out towards the third act or the final reel, as it were, if you're thinking about it as a film. I did have a few other problems, and that was I found that it had a little bit of an emotional core. Every character had machinations and plans and agency and motivations that they were sticking to, and that I could understand. Now, there was a lot of them to keep track of. I'm not saying it was like falling out of bed. There's a lot of them to keep track of, but absolutely possible. But what I did not feel all the time was an emotional core for some of these characters. So when some things happened, it was almost as if some of these characters were icons or placeholders for ideas. So I wasn't necessarily attached to them in a human way. So if things would happen to them, I wasn't necessarily drawn in and had as much of an emotional impact as maybe I would have wanted from a story. But from what I understand going forward into books 2 and 3, this is a problem that completely goes away. He really goes all in on his themes, and he really goes all into that emotional core to where I have had people tell me it's like, oh, I sobbed like no other book before during Dead House Gates or other books in the series. And it's like, oh my God, if you take this off the chart, bonkers, world building, complex lore, unbelievable, long-lived characters, because again, you've got characters on the terrestrial realm, then you have these ascended characters that are living these long, extended times, basically as if they were a deity, that you have them moving pieces around and involved. So again, very layered, very complex. If you start to add characters like that you start looking through their eyes as they see empires rise and fall, and yet still have enough of a care and modicum of humanity in them that they would still want to move pieces and make a difference in some way or another. If you could mine that for an emotional core to where I am attached, my soul to theirs, my heart to theirs, so when things happen, I feel it just as they do. If you add that emotional core, that thread through it, to everything that you have in this, wow, it's going to be off the chart. Like, it's absolutely going to be off the chart. For me, as a debut, as the beginning of a series, this is just mind-blowing. The complexity of the lore, the complexity of the themes, the complexity of the multi-layered characters from terrestrial to ascended, it's just like, wow, absolutely astonishing. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to read the second book. And I just found out that Broken Binding has my first 3 of MALAZAN in the mail to me. It's on the way. So
wow. You ordered those a while ago, didn't you?
Yeah, it took a while. I think they didn't like the thickness of the paper. They had to reprint or something. I don't know. Something happened. Okay. But they're finally coming in, so it will not be that much longer before I can pick up book 2, because I'll have books 1 through 3.
Well, this is the one that I've got my money on that you're going to pick for Book of the Month.
This is, man, as a debut and as a first foray into a series, this has so much. It is so flashy. It has stuff that I've never seen in this series. It has, I mean, just like bonkers ideas, just like huge moments and bonkers ideas that I've never seen. The creativity that this has in it as a very first foray into an artistic endeavor like a huge series is just mind-numbing to me. That he just comes out with track shoes and hits the ground running like this. So I did have a few problems with it. Will the just off the chain creativity make me overlook that? I don't know. We'll see. But there's no doubt this isn't up for Book of the Month.
I think it might overdo it for you. Just because you are a bonkers idea guy. That's your jam.
Man, there are some bonkers ideas. I hate to say any of them, but I would love to talk to someone. I would love to talk to someone that's read the first few books at least, or the whole series, and go, "What?" There are just so many things that make you go, "What?" You know. So, gonna have to make that happen.
It'll happen.
Then, okay. After this, this was the I needed a palate cleanser. I needed the equivalent of a reading sorbet, something to just clear the air. And so I had to pick up volume 9 of One Piece, because I got to be ready for the crew. We're all getting together on Dr. Philip Chase's channel, The Best of Fantasy. The whole crew is getting together over there, I believe on the 22nd. And we are going to talk about, well, we might record it. He might drop it after that. I'm not sure. So don't quote me on that. But it's this month we're getting together, and we're going to talk about the first 9 volumes of One Piece, because this is the one where everyone has told me, hey, I'm really loving One Piece. It gives me that breath of fresh air. It gives me that jolt of fun. It's all, you know what I was thinking today, because I'm reading volume 10, and remember back in the day, buddy, when you would watch just for hours those Tom and Jerry cartoons?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This is it. Like, there's so much physical comedy and huge physical comedy moments, right? And the same kind of that same kind of Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry type of feel to it. And it's fun, and you enjoy it, And then as you're going in, you're starting to realize, like, wow, that's actually saying something pretty deep about found family or loyalty or the misuse of authority or the beauty of leadership well done when you bring those to you around you together and build a family that would walk into traffic for each other. There's so much going on under that veneer of the physical comedy. And volume 9 is that emotional moment that they were telling me, it's going to hit you. It's going to hit. The end of volume 9 is when that it's not just the fun, poppy, silly moments, the over the top combat, that emotional core that you didn't even know you were getting to love these characters so much. By the end of this one, it's going to hit you. And they weren't wrong. It did. I didn't shed a tear. But there is something that happens at the end of this one that did. It gave me the ugly breath.
Can we get an example of that, please?
Yeah, it gave me that. Oh, I had
a tear. Tears incoming.
Yeah,
is what the ugly breath signifies.
My lip might have quivered. My lip might have quivered a little bit.
Well, I'm sure
you do the ugly breath.
Huh?
Do the ugly. You do it good. Do the ugly breath. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah. So there was a moment right there that gave me the ugly breath.
Well, I'm sure the tears will come. They'll get you next time.
All I had to do was read up to volume 9 to be ready for the crew. And I was reading volume 10 today because let's just say it. I got to see what happens at Arlong Park. Like, I got to see what happens. So
can we get a little bit of a teaser? Did volume 10 bring any tears?
No. It was just all
just straight up action for volume 10.
It was just all smack 'em up from beginning to end.
Nothing wrong with that. I'll go back to the tears later, I'm sure.
Absolutely will. So look, I finished up the month. My last read of the month was an author I have followed for years and years and years and years. Before we even started the channel, before you gave me the most amazing gift of all time and built this channel for me so I could meet all these amazing people and catch up on some of these amazing fantasy series that I had not been reading, I was a big horror fan. And Jonathan Mayberry was one of my go-to, one of my favorites, one of my year in, year out. He would have books and I would always pick them up. Just automatic buy, right? So little bit of comfort food, if you want to call it that. Glimpse by Jonathan Mayberry finished out the month. And look, I love horror. It's what I'm all about. Before I started broadening my my genre and my mind and picking up all these other things that I'm doing now and loving. But to go back to this and to see an author that I have loved for so many years, I'm caught up with his Joe Ledger series. I started with him with the Pine Deep series. I've read book 1 of his epic fantasy trilogy, Kagan the Damned. I got to get back to that. So just to grab this and go, oh man, this is a character, because everything he does is one big, huge shared universe feel. And to pick this up and go, I'm going to have Monk Addison here that first appeared in the Pine Deep trilogy way back in the day when he started out as a writer. And he's going to show up again here. And I can't wait to get to it. And let me tell you, this was so good. This was so good. To pick up an author you love and it's comfort food to you, and to pick up something and they just nail it. Like, they just nailed this. This is such an amazing love letter to that subgenre of that occult investigator. And I love this subgenre, like all the way back to Seabury Quinn's Jules de Grandin, Clive Barker's Harry D'Amour, or Brian Lumley's Titus Crow, or lately Jim Butcher's Harry Dresden, John Constantine in DC Comics. That investigator that they call in when things are just a little off kilter, a little bit skewed, because they can see what's really out there. the things that go bump in the night, the things that are kind of just behind the curtain that we don't see necessarily most of the time. And this is a story Monk Addison factors in that way. He is an amazing occultist investigator. I cannot wait to get to the next book he's in, which is called Ink, which I have already on a TBR coming up quickly. That's how much I love this one. I immediately put the next book on a TBR. This is one of those stories that it's psychological horror, spiritual horror, an occult investigator. So many things going on. This young woman comes to a crossroads and has to make a heartbreaking decision when she finds herself. And again, this is all on the back cover or inside flap cover. I'm not giving away too much. Believe me, so much happens here. But she finds herself in a very young life facing a possibility of a family way. She's found herself pregnant. She's had a tragedy of the father being called away to war and killed in action. And how is, what decision is she going to make? What's best for the child? And she thinks with all the input, she makes the best decision for the child. And this is a story about guilt and weight that you have to carry as you live a life, and the kind of family you're going to surround yourself with if you're carrying that kind of weight, and how it affects your life. And then just to add that little bit of spiritual oomph to this, for that spiritual amount of horror, the decision that she made for herself and her child starts to become so much more important. This could have been, this decision reflects on all of us on a spiritual level, how we come together, how we can get over this moment in time, which finds us so on one extreme side or the other, and not being able to come to terms and talk to each other, which is where the magic happens. And her decision has impacted that. And her decision in her own psyche has brought about some of the best villainous monsters in Dr. Nine and the Nurse that I've read in a long, long time. And it all comes from internal psychological horror that we carry with us, the weight that it weighs on us. What crossroads do we have to go back to? How can we rewind that clock and go back and make a difference, not only for us and the weight we carry, but for all those around us? Because it is just a fact that we are all connected in a spiritual way. And it just operated on so many different levels like that for me. It was so beautiful. The characters were well drawn and well defined. The horror was terrifying because it was a psychological type that you deal with all the time, and a spiritual quandary that we find ourselves in of separation and anxiety that we're all living through in these modern times. So it was something that was easy to be completely unexplainable and outra, and at the same time, something that we can manifest in ourselves and understand that experience and grab onto the story and not let go until we get to that final page, because it has something to say to us that we inherently, distinctly, in a deep, deep way understand. And it was just such a great way to end the month. One of my favorites, hitting it out of the park. Got to be up for book of the month.
Now, I know that I said my bets are on Gardens of the Moon, and I'm not changing that, even though you're
not going to change. Okay.
No, even though you just sang this book's praises really hard for about 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah. But I kind of hope this one wins. Only because you've loved and followed Jonathan Mayberry for so long, and I don't believe he's ever won Book of the Month. It'd be really cool to see him.
He's never won Book of the Month. He's never won Book of the Month. It would be awesome to see him get one. And look, everything I want from a book 2, no way this is not on my favorite trilogies list of all time. The wife just knows me so well, picks something that just hits on every cylinder. I love author voice. I love unreliable narrator. I love a haunted house story. I love it when it's done completely different. So how could this not be up there? And just the unbridled creativity on display out of the blocks on the marathon that is, a 10 or 11 book, however 10 or 11 book series that this is going to be, is just wows me, or just an old favorite that hits it out of the park. I love horror so much for the reason that story and art operates because it's life lived on a heightened level at a compressed level of time. And there's no way to do that better for me than horror, because you get to that fight or flight area. So not only is everything compressed and heightened to the point where it can't be heightened anymore. So this is why I love this genre, and it's why it keeps pulling me back. So one of my all-time favorites doing it so well here. It's tough.
You gotta pick one, man. Well, starting off, usually you eliminate one and go from there, so.
Okay. I'm going to eliminate Woodworm.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to say that's like small novel novella, and I'm going to eliminate it for that reason, even though I'm sure your mother would argue with me and say that's no reason to eliminate this. But
I'm sure she would. Also, usually all the ones that are up for Book of the Month are ones that you recommend and will therefore be in the description. So if Woodworm does sound interesting to you, head down in the description and pick it up for yourself.
Head down in the description. Absolutely. It will be there. Okay. All right. I'm going to eliminate Tyranny of Faith.
Oh, okay. All right.
Everything I wanted from a book 2. And even though I had problems with this, it did not give me the highs both of these did. Even though the horror at the end, guys, maybe. No, this is strictly on gut. Strictly on gut. Both of these gave me higher highs. Even though I had some problems that I didn't necessarily have here. But no way this is not on my favorite trilogy list of all time. In most months, this would win going away. So, look, it comes down to these two.
This is where I thought
it comes down to these two. Man. I don't know. I might have to go downstairs and get a tie and put a tie on.
No.
Like, this is really a call. I don't know if I can make.
You're in it. Now you got to see it through to the end. Don't delay with a sip of Dr. Pepper.
I don't like this. Look, both of these should win. Both of these absolutely. Look, even though this character appears first in Pine Deep, you don't need any of that. This is a fine place to jump in for Jonathan Mayberry. This is going to be listed down below. We can list this down below too, but everyone knows about, start your Malazan journey if you haven't already.
Absolutely.
But we'll have links for all these.
Tyranny of Faith will be listed down below as well.
Well, that's a book too, so maybe we'll list book 1.
We'll list book 1. You're right.
Yeah. It just feels wrong not picking either one of these. It feels completely wrong. All right, I'm gonna go Gardens of the Moon. I'm gonna have to go Gardens of the Moon simply because there are so many times in this that just made me go, wow, I'm stunned. I'm stunned. That level of creativity, that level of complexity, those moments, those huge moments. I gotta go. I'm just thinking moments in my head and the end and Animander Rake and the Fall of Pale and across the roofs of Duristan. For the highs, like I did have some issues and problems, which I feel will be completely resolved moving forward in this series, and I'm just going to be blown over. But the highs in this, the level of creativity is just off the chart. Got to do it. I got to do it.
The predictions, man. I nailed it. I'm proud of myself.
You did.
You don't look proud of yourself.
I'm not happy. I'm not happy. It should have been a 4-way tie. I'm going to go with a 4-way tie.
You got to go downstairs and grab 4 ties.
Really, all these are going to be. If you haven't done any of all of these, should be read.
They will all be in the description, but
they will all be. Look,
it came out of his mouth word for word. He likes Gardens of the Moon more than all of them, and he hates the rest. No, that's
I never in a million years would say that. That's it. That's our February.
Well done. Great February.
Great February. Great February. Great 2025 so far. Thank you guys so much for being here with us, for joining us. How was your February? I hope you had as hard of a time picking a book of the month. Let me know what you finally decided on. Let me know how your reading journey was through February. You know what? Hit us in comments. We love comments. The whole reason we started this journey was to talk about people, talk about books with people, people that love books, the kind of books we love. We're going to answer every comment that comes in as quickly as we can, because that's the whole reason why we're here. While you're down there leaving that comment, hit that little thumbs up button. It makes so much of a difference. I know it seems silly, and you may not even, you never even think about it, but it helps us make new friends. It helps us bring new people and new perspectives and new ideas and new recommendations of what we should be reading next, all under the same tent with this group that we have growing here. So hit that thumbs up button. It helps us get out there in a broader way. And if this is your first time, just to see, oh my gosh, how did Malazan go over with this guy? Or what did he read in February? What's going on? And this is your first time? Hit that subscription button. This group, people like Chris Ritchie here, part of this group, and so many others that are just, I'm telling you, unbelievable group hanging out together on Discord and talking about art and story and what it means and how it changes us and how it helps us see the world in a different way. You join that group, you come on this journey with us. Absolutely, you hit that subscription button, you're going to feel a tingle. It's just the truth. It's just going to happen. It's scientific fact. And that's it for us. We will see you again at the end of another month and probably have the same kind of horrible decision to make.
You have it every month.
These
must be your least favorite videos to do.
I don't like these. I'll be real honest with you. I would way rather do a TBR, and everything could be that delicious piece of candy that you have no idea. But I get so many amazing recommendations from everybody. You guys are sending me the best of the best of the best. I don't read bad books anymore, all thanks to you, and I'll never be able to thank you enough. That's why my decisions are so hard. Yeah.
That is true. What a way to go out. Well said.
Yeah, man. I can't wait for you to have more than one book and you have to decide.
Oh, I got to pick one?
Yeah. Let's think about this.
It's coming up in
March. You're also reading Howling Dark.
Yeah, but I really love this.
Oh, but you haven't read Howling Dark yet.
Which would you pick? Curse of the Mist. I'm going to trick you into picking another favorite. How about that?
I'm not. You could not pay me enough after having to narrow this down to go back into that. So just forget about it. Thank you guys so much. Just thanks for being here. Thanks for giving us all your recommendations, your time, your attention. Thanks for changing our lives for the better and being here on Talking Story.